Right, so Benjamin Netanyahu is learning the hard way to be careful what you wish for, especially if what you wish for is a war with Iran. Netanyahu has of course been a long-time prophet of Tehran's supposed nuclear doom. For 30 years he's claimed Iran is weeks away or months away from developing a nuclear weapon. And finally, with the US now run by a president stupid enough to apparently now believe him, at least to the point he's given Israel Hellfire missiles to hit Iran specifically with, it is alleged, he's finally gotten the conflict he spent decades warning about, provoking and craving. But instead of emerging as the iron-fisted guardian of Israeli security, he now finds himself neck deep in a geopolitical disaster of his own making, dodging missiles, running out of interceptors and rapidly losing the plot. What Israel purported to be all about necessary strikes to stop Iran's nuclear ambition has revealed itself as a desperate crusade for regional supremacy and regime change in Iran now, all of which has turned into a self-inflicted disaster upon himself and his people of epic proportions. A personal nightmare that even his Western allies, capable of talking the talk, but still seem unwilling to share by walking the walk, unless of course Donald Trump decides to suit up. He is keeping us wondering about that still after all. Right, so Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's longest-serving Prime Minister, has never shied away from starting conflict by either words or deeds, and he's got away with it largely because Israel is a Western colonial project that must not be allowed to fail, it seems. Too big to fail. But in launching a new war against Iran, unprovoked as that was, illegal as it is, and proving to have been really, really stupid, he's crossed a threshold that not only threatens the very survival of the Israeli state, but also shatters any remaining illusions about his leadership or what passes for it. The campaign that began with claims of neutralising Iran's nuclear capabilities has morphed into calls for regime change now. Yet instead of weakening Tehran, Netanyahu has unleashed a firestorm of retaliation, legal scrutiny and global economic panic that even his Western allies from Donald Trump to Friedrich Merz appear reluctant to own, despite the guff they might be saying publicly about it. Israel's latest attacks on Iran, targeting key sites in Tehran, Karaj, Tajrish, Isfahan, and also having struck the Imam Hussein University. Presumably Iran are hiding in tunnels under it, or have a nuclear weapon development centre there, or it's just Hamas, who knows anymore. Just the latest chapter in a decades-long campaign by Benjamin Netanyahu to frame Iran as an imminent, ever-present nuclear threat. Since the early 1990s, Netanyahu has claimed that Iran was just months away from acquiring a nuclear weapon. For 30 years, Iran have been months or weeks away from this, and still, we're waiting for that, of course, aren't we? Yet not once in any of those 3 decades has any evidence emerged to substantiate his claims. Even the IAEA, via their director Rafael Grossi, have reiterated recently and publicly that there is no current evidence of nuclear weapons development in Iran. It just doesn't suit Netanyahu's narrative or goals, that, does it? As such, Israel continues to strike Iranian nuclear sites on the basis that Netanyahu has set out, made up as that well might be, risking catastrophic fallout nonetheless. These strikes are not about defence, they're about domination. And this time Netanyahu's not hiding it either. While initial Israeli claims focus on halting Iran's nuclear programme, the narrative has now openly shifted. Israeli officials have begun advocating for full-scale regime change in Iran. Netanyahu himself has urged Iranians to rise up and overthrow the Ayatollahs, declaring that the removal of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei would not escalate the conflict but end it. It's an Orwellian claim that flies in the face of every historical precedent that has come before it, of course. Reality not really Netanyahu's strongest suit. The attacks on Iran have seen support for the Iranian leadership increase, not lessen, and removing Khamenei would not, I don't think, hamper the leadership unduly, with the replacement voted through very quickly by Iran's so-called Assembly of Experts. Allegedly, this might already have actually been done, given Khamenei is now 86 and he'll be 93 by the time his current tenure as Supreme Leader ends in 2032. So without the people behind deposing the Iranian leadership, it simply wouldn't happen. So this getting talked up by Israel is talking up something that they are incapable of delivering and is simply not on the cards. But that's not to say Israel aren't going to keep talking up their chances. Israel's insane Defence Minister Israel Katz has compared Khamenei to Saddam Hussein now, insofar as warning Iran that Israel would do to him what the Americans did to Saddam. But this statement, of course, immediately draws dangerous parallels to the 2003 Iraq War, doesn't it? It turns our minds back to that time, based on lies about WMDs as that war was, sold to the public under the guise of liberation. And ultimately, all it did was unleash chaos across the Middle East and initiated the rise of ISIS. Katz is an idiot. All he has done is point to a dishonestly enacted war that he's now saying Israel essentially would repeat. If Israel is modelling its war on that, the support for them amongst the global populace should only collapse even further. Under Article 2.4 of the UN Charter, the use of force against another sovereign state is prohibited unless authorised by the Security Council or justified by self-defence. Israel's unprovoked attack on Iran clearly violates that standard. Furthermore, Article BIS of the Rome Statute criminalises the planning or execution of an act of aggression. Israel's targeting of political institutions, propaganda networks and civilian infrastructure in Tehran and elsewhere in Iran constitutes not just a military strike, but a political war against a sovereign regime. They are bang to rights here, regardless of their justifications, under international law. By contrast, Iran's response, missile strikes targeting Israeli military bases and key infrastructure as a result of being attacked first, fits squarely within Article 51 of the UN Charter, which guarantees the right of nations to respond in self-defence to armed attack. Despite these violations, though, despite international law clearly being on Iran's side here, Netanyahu still enjoys support from Western powers, at least rhetorically, for what he is doing. The tangerine toddler masquerading as an adult and elected as US President somehow, Donald Trump, has both condemned Iran and praised Israeli operations, saying we now have total control of Iran's skies. Is this the royal we or an actual we? The US has, after all, protests recently about wanting no kings, of course. So this statement alone has triggered speculation that the US is already covertly involved in this war somehow, certainly are by way of arming Israel, at the very least. Yet Trump has refused to greenlight direct military strikes on Iran or approve Israeli requests for US bunker busters, the bombs needed to destroy hardened Iranian nuclear sites, deep underground as they are, which are so massive, these bombs, that only US bombers are actually capable of carrying and deploying them. So it would mean US involvement should that ever come to pass. So his hesitation stems from needing to cover his own backside too, though. The majority of Americans now oppose war with Iran, including a growing number of his own MAGA supporters. His own base is split. This is supposed to be Donald Trump the peacemaker, the no more wars president. It will damage him massively if he goes to war for Netanyahu, and as Iranian retaliation comes thick and fast, Netanyahu's desperation about this is growing ever larger. Meanwhile, protests have erupted across the US again, with demonstrators demanding that America absolutely stay out of Israel's mess, proving the point it is not a popular decision to back Israel militarily versus Iran. This war, many say, is not America's to fight, and Trump is now risking his base by flirting with intervention, not saying yes or no to it, basically just enjoying the attention he's getting over the will he or won't he moment at this point in time. Israeli security analysts and even some former negotiators have warned of potential false flag operations that may shortly come due to how desperate Netanyahu is getting. Fears of Israeli attacks on US or allied assets in the Middle East so that they can falsely be blamed on Iran to pull the US into war. Netanyahu's increasingly desperate tone has already taken a further sinister turn in recent days as well, now claiming that Iran was behind 2 alleged assassination attempts on Trump, without offering any proof again, because of course there won't be any, begging to start a war as this would be, if true, yet Iran don't start wars. They don't have a track record for doing that at all. They're always prepared for them, though, as Israel is absolutely now learning. Indeed, as a result of such Iranian retaliation, Israel's military capabilities are under significant strain. According to reports, Israel is verging on running out of interceptor missiles, jeopardizing its Iron Dome and its David Sling and Arrow 3 air defense systems. Nothing to put into them, so to speak. Without interceptors, Israel literally don't have an air defense system anymore, and they could be out of them within days. So with each Iranian retaliation, Israel's defense grid is being weakened, yet Netanyahu's government continues to escalate nonetheless. The war is also hammering the global economy. Oil prices have spiked again amid talk of Trump joining Israel's war, so this is his fault, really. And US stocks have dropped accordingly too, with markets fearful that the conflict could spiral into that US-Iranian confrontation that is unjustified and greatly feared because of the wider war that this would almost certainly trigger. And that's all aside from the talk that's going on about Iran possibly mining and blockading the Strait of Hormuz, which would cut off 20% of oil trade around the world. Some would do quite well to be mindful of such historical precedents, though, which brings me on to Germany. Chancellor Friedrich Merz. I mentioned him earlier. Why did I mention him earlier specifically? Well, there was a reason. You see, he has loudly and proudly proclaimed that by fighting Iran, Israel is doing the West's dirty work. An appalling admission that confirms Israel's war on Iran is also a proxy war on behalf of the West, it seems. But given Germany's track record, as Iran's foreign ministry reminded them of the other day, of having started 2 world wars themselves, being on the side of the madman instigating war across the Middle East here, it really is a government determined to keep their nation on the wrong side of history. A period of silence on such things from Merz would be appropriate, I fancy. Yet when challenged by journalists over his comment, Merz just doubled down on it and even called on Iran to return to negotiations. Well, they were literally at the negotiation talks, you absolute balloon. They walked away after Israel attacked them. Where's your criticism of Israel? Well, it's non-existent. One wonders how a nation brutalised by an unprovoked war is expected to take orders from a man whose country openly endorsed the assault and supports them unquestioningly. Iran's allies include China and Russia, of course, and they have criticised Israel's attacks as part of a broader war on US multipolarity, as they've called it. In this framing, Israel is not simply targeting Iran, it's attacking the idea of a world where power is not centralised in the West, with the US as king. Not that they like those sorts of things, we understand. But the global balance of power is becoming stronger in the East now, so it's becoming a bigger issue in the US, certainly. Benjamin Netanyahu's war on Iran, therefore, has never been defensive. It never has been. It is an ideological, nonsense-driven measure which is endangering his own people. It is illegal and it is unraveling. What began as a campaign to allegedly halt Iran's nuclear ambitions has exposed Israel's deeper agenda, regional supremacy at all costs. The result is a spiralling conflict that has already claimed hundreds of lives, strained global markets and placed the world on edge. Yet Netanyahu cannot win this war alone, and he knows it. And yet still, his Western allies are unwilling to fight it for him as things stand right now. Donald Trump is trapped between loyalty to Netanyahu and his own political survival, and he's always been the sort of person who puts himself first, doesn't he? European leaders are caught between duplicity and disillusionment, and the people are left to suffer the consequences of all of these leaders who use lies to launch wars nonetheless. Meanwhile, of course, aside from Iran, Israel is still committing genocide across Gaza, having made an appalling admission in relation to that, the details of which can be found in this video recommendation here as your suggested next watch. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe if you haven't done so already, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new daily content, sort of spreading the word and helping to support the channel at the very same time, which is very much appreciated. Holding power to account for ordinary working class people, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.